But the story we are breaking this evening, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has met the Army Chief General Upendra Dwivedi a short while ago. The Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar and NSA Ajit Doval also attended that high-level meet. This is part of a series of meetings that the Prime Minister has been holding with security chiefs after the Pahalgam terror attack last week. India, meanwhile, has warned Pakistan against continued ceasefire violations. Indian and Pakistani Director Generals of Military Operation, DGMOs, have held talks over a hotline. The US Secretary of State, Rubio, is expected to call both Indian and Pakistani leaders later today, expected to speak to the Foreign Minister Jaishankar and the Pakistani Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar. So plenty happening both on the diplomatic and military front at the moment in both countries. I want to go to our diplomatic affairs editor Geeta Mohan and Kamaljeet Sandhu, who's on the ground in Kashmir. Kamaljeet, we are hearing that the two DGMOs have held talks amidst continuing ceasefire violations, small artillery fire by the Pakistanis across the LOC. What more details can you provide there in Srinagar?
Well, in the past 8 days, what we've seen is at least 6 times there have been ceasefire violations across line of control, both in Naushera, both sides of Pir Panjal, both in Kupwara side, Baramulla, Naushera, other sectors as well. So this is a sort of escalation that we see across line of control, but this may just be the sideshow. The main one is what is expected is an imminent surgical strike, part 3. And what we've seen is there have been a slew of meetings, and what we know is the Prime Minister has just met the Army Chief, the NSA, as well as the Foreign Affairs Minister. So this is a clear indication that there's going to be a diplomatic offensive. What is in pipeline is also a military response and a retribution which is expected in the next couple of hours or days or so. There is supposedly a surprise tactics in waiting, but clearly Pakistan has also upped the ante, because that's how we see there is a cross-border action. There is obviously one thing what intelligence sources do estimate is that as far as Pakistan is concerned, since this is a precise Pahalgam terror attack planned, they would have done reverse planning. That means they would have prepared a military plan in place. Then they would have planned the calling back of terrorists from the launch pads, at least 43 of them which were active, and thereafter plan this particular attack. So the planning by Pakistan is already done, but the surprise is held by India now. We've seen it after Uri, we've seen after Pulwama terror attack, both in 2014 and 2019. A retribution happened, a big surgical strikes happened, but meanwhile, even as several countries are calling for de-escalation, it seems the strike may simply be imminent. And just it's not about action at the borders. In hinterland, multiple operations underway in South Kashmir. We know that's what is happening. Jammu Kashmir Police, the RR, as well as CRPF, all in different places. Anti-Fidayeen squads by Indian Army, they're all in place. So multiple operations are underway, but meanwhile, all eyes on the line of control and the international border.
Let me go for a moment to Geeta Mohan, because at the moment there is also focus, Geeta, on that call expected from the US Secretary of State Rubio to Jaishankar and to Ishaq Dar of Pakistan. US, it appears, is trying to somehow or the other ensure a de-escalation of tensions. What exactly is expected in the next few days when it comes to the diplomatic offensive?
Well, Rajdeep, after Iran, China, the UN Secretary General, now we have the United States of America also in a press conference yesterday saying that there needs to be de-escalation, that the two sides need to choose the diplomatic route rather than escalating tensions. Nobody at this point in time, at this juncture, wants an Indo-Pak conflict, even a limited one at that, because for America, the stakes are very high. Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, is going to have a conversation with Ishaq Dar, Foreign Minister of Pakistan, as also External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar. And that certainly will be the message that will be conveyed to New Delhi and to Islamabad. The reason being, at this point in time, when there's a massive tariff war underway between America and China, India is critical for America, and they do not want India diverting its attention to an Indo-Pak conflict rather than focusing on economy, given that the slump that we are seeing now in the United States of America.
In fact, the new figures that have come out show the US has gone into, there's been a decline in growth rate, but is there, Geeta, pressure being put only by the United States, or are we seeing other countries also dialing into the two leaderships to try and see how they can de-escalate tension? And what is India's likely response to be to the United States at this stage?
Well, the meetings are quite telling. We're looking at not just the CCS, CCPA, CCEA cabinet that took place yesterday. There are a series of meetings that took place today, including one that just concluded with Dr. Jaishankar, the army chief, security officials, National Security Advisor and Prime Minister Narendra Modi in that meeting at 7 LKM. And then parallelly, there is another meeting that's underway, which is being chaired by Home Minister Amit Shah on the Indus Waters Treaty. Very, very specific over here that India is going to respond, Rajdeep, and that is the message that is being conveyed to the international community, that this attack is not going to be taken lying down by India. There is going to be a response, although, like you rightly pointed out, there are countries with massive stakes in stability and peace in the region who have already not just sought de-escalation. Iran has offered its good offices. The United Nations, very worried, Secretary General has already spoken to the leaders, and now we're looking at Marco Rubio also, who's going to weigh in. But India's message is going to be that there needs to be a response. Not to forget, it's been 8 days and the terrorists are still on the run.
That's right, 8 days, the terrorists still on the run. Small artillery fire continuing across the LOC. India having sent a warning to Pakistan already, a series of meetings taking place. Whether that will lead to de-escalation or eventually retaliation, well, the next week should tell us what lies ahead. Appreciate both of you joining me. Now remember, tensions between the two countries, India and Pakistan, are boiling by the day. The line of control in particular witnessing intense escalation, Pakistan violating the ceasefire in multiple sectors with Indian forces responding. Amidst the flare-up, India issuing another strong warning to Pakistan, stressing the seriousness of the situation. Pakistan's information minister claiming to have intelligence suggesting an imminent Indian strike. As we said earlier, the United States now looking to step in, urging both countries to de-escalate, with US Secretary of State Marco Rubio set to engage with Indian and Pakistani counterparts. Yesterday night, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has also intervened, speaking separately to Pakistan Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif, Indian External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar. So all of this coming at a time when Pakistan's National Assembly Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar taking credit for blocking the terror group TRF from being named in a UN resolution on the Pahalgam terror attack. India's envoy Yojana Patel exposing Pakistan's duplicity at the UN, calling it out for its role as a hub for terror. Listen in to the comments that were made in the United Nations, and then we'll be joined by a former Indian diplomat.
Pakistan has credible intelligence that India intends carrying out military action against Pakistan in the next 24 to 36 hours on the pretext of baseless and concocted allegations of involvement in the Pahalgam incident.
पाकिस्तान के बिहाफ पे मेरे दो इतराज़ात थे। एक उसमें पहलगाम लिखा हुआ था सिर्फ, और दूसरा उसमें ब्लेम डाला गया था द रेजिस्टेंस फोरम, और उस पे उसको कंडेम किया गया, उसको जिम्मेदार ठहराया गया उस प्रेस रिलीज में। तो मुझे आई, मैंने देखा, मैंने कहा ये एक्सेप्टेबल नहीं। मैंने कहा यहां हमें एविडेंस दिखाएं कि ये द रेजिस्टेंस फोरम ने, द टीआरएफ ने किया है, तो फिर हम इसको रहने देंगे, या उनकी ओनरशिप दिखा दें। ये नहीं हो सकता। पाकिस्तान will not accept.
It is unfortunate that one particular delegation has chosen to misuse and undermine this forum to indulge in propaganda and make baseless allegations against India. The whole world has heard Pakistan's Defense Minister Khwaja Asif admitting and confessing Pakistan's history of supporting training, and funding terrorist organizations in a recent television interview. This open confession surprises no one and exposes Pakistan as a rogue state fueling global terrorism and destabilizing the region. The world can no longer turn a blind eye. I have nothing further to add.
The world can no longer turn a blind eye to Pakistan is India's message at the United Nations. Will that message resonate? Syed Akbaruddin, India's former permanent representative to the United Nations, joins us. Syed Akbaruddin, we've seen in the past India raise its voice against Pak-based terror at the United Nations, but we've also seen Pakistan, particularly because of its close relationship with China, with its veto powers, getting away each time. Can this be any different?
So Rajdeep, first of all, between India and Pakistan, the diplomatic bandwidth is very limited. And you know this because you've covered it for so long. Bilaterally, we have very limited leverage with each other. Multilaterally, the world is in an unpredictable, uncertain situation where peace and security globally are not on the main table where things can be sorted out. I mean, look at what's just happened in the last few days. The trouble between Congo and Rwanda could not be resolved in the Security Council. The trouble between Azerbaijan and Armenia could not be resolved. Issues in the South China Sea cannot be resolved. So let's understand that while diplomacy is the first response to try and ensure that differences don't become conflictual, in this case of India and Pakistan, diplomatic leverages are very limited, both bilaterally as well as in multilateral fora. So I don't expect these simmerings that are going on to have very much of a resonance, because to me it looks like Pakistan is playing by its old playbook. Listening to the information minister brought me back memories of when I was the first secretary at the UN in 1998. Pakistan called our High Commissioner at midnight and said, we have information, credible information, that India and Israel are going to attack our nuclear assets. They then called all members of the Security Council, demarcated all European Union members, etc., saying, we see an imminent threat right in the middle of the night. I see that playbook being played again, the same old stories of denial, deceit and deception. So it's nothing new.
No, that's the point. If it's the same old story of denial, deception, why doesn't the world call it out? Why does the United States not call it out? Why do countries which claim otherwise that they are part of a global coalition against terror not call out Pakistan? Is it the China angle? That China, for example, when it came to Masood Azhar, resisted getting him called a designated terrorist. I think you were there at the United Nations at the time.
Yes, it's true that many of these things in the United Nations are done not in face-to-face negotiations, but through what they call the by circulation. And as you said, Masood Azhar, took us 20 years to get him designated as a terrorist, simply because the United Nations is not fit for purpose to address terrorism. It was fit for purpose in 1945 to address different types of threats to peace and security. Those threats have now changed. The United Nations has not kept in pace, and to expect that to address issues as complex as India and Pakistan would be difficult to even fathom, because let me tell you, the last time a formal meeting of the United Nations Security Council on India and Pakistan took place was in 1965. That's 60 years ago, Rajdeep. So let's be clear that most countries will shun the issue of India and Pakistan. The last time there was an informal attempt by China after Article 370 was annulled. China tried to call the informal discussion, and every member spoke up saying, India and Pakistan issues, this is not the place, let them sort it out separately. And therefore, despite its best effort, China couldn't get anything on the agenda. So don't expect any difference now. Multilateral approaches to peace and security are perhaps not the way to go about.
But in a way, the very fact that Pakistan managed to exclude TRF, the Resistance Forum, which had claimed responsibility for the Pahalgam attack, the Baisaran attack, excluded from the resolution, clearly suggests that dal mein kuch kala hai, that they don't want to, they will never admit to having sponsored and fostered these groups on their soil. And as I said, they get away with it each time.
So Rajdeep, you're right that it's pretty clear that by supporting an organization which had claimed at the time when the United Nations Security Council was discussing this issue, the TRF had actually claimed that it was responsible. The last time it happened, the Jaish-e-Mohammed had claimed, and we were able to put it in. Then the Jaish recanted, like the TRF has recanted now. And I remember the then Pakistani Foreign Minister, Shah Mohammad Qureshi, said, no, the Jaish-e-Mohammed people have told us they are not involved. So this is the same game. But having said that, again, if consensus is the basis for decision-making, which it is in this case of a press release, which is not even in a formal meeting, but by a circulation procedure, you can expect that it's never going to go through when out of the 15 members, 2 members will be opposed to it. That said, let's be clear, the others are pretty understanding of what happens. Let us not think like you have come to the conclusion that why is Pakistan trying and supporting an organization which nobody else knows, which has a track record of support for of indulging in terror activities. Don't you think the rest of the countries know? But it's by consensus. So the United Nations system is a suboptimal system. That suboptimal system doesn't work in such cases.
So let me ask you in conclusion, what's the best way forward? You've got the US Secretary of State ringing up Jaishankar. He's going to ring up the Pakistan counterpart. What's, according to you, the best way to deal with a country that refuses to acknowledge its role in sponsoring terror? How does one remove this veil of deniability?
So Rajdeep, as I told you, I don't see diplomacy as the way forward. I've seen this happen before. John Kerry had phoned Mrs. Sushma Swaraj prior to a similar attack previously in 2016. So it's not unusual for secretaries of state to do this effort, to make that effort. Having said that, let's be clear, if diplomacy is not there, and if we do not want an escalation of a nature that nobody will have control on, then there are multiple areas which can be looked at. For example, there are non-traditional security responses that can be looked at. I'm not going to get into what they are because those in authority have a better picture of what non-traditional security responses can be. But it has to be meaningful because diplomacy has played its hand. The maximum we could have done was the Indus Water Treaty. We've thrown the dice there. We've indicated that we will keep it in abeyance, but that's not an immediate solution. It will have long-term and middle-term repercussions. You want other repercussions of a meaningful nature, less than kinetic. Perhaps non-traditional mechanisms are there, and let's leave it at that because these are best handled by those who know what they are and to use those things. In any case, I think a meaningful response is required now to establish some form of deterrence.
My final question, if India is to exercise one of those kinetic options, do you believe the world will stand by India given the horror of what happened in Baisaran?
So let me put it another way. I think India has the diplomatic ability to ward off any challenges to a response that it is now taking in self-defense. There are, under international law, options available for self-defense after an attack of this sort. So India's diplomatic abilities can easily manage that. I'm not going to say whether we will isolate or not, but the the fallout for India is going to be limited in any response that we undertake, and that would perhaps be where diplomacy will come into play. It will be at the forefront, not in trying to resolve the issue, but to contain the fallout.
Okay. I'm going to leave it there, Syed Akbaruddin, for giving us a sense of how the UN operates in such conflict situations, what India's options are, and really exposing in a way Pakistan's continuous attempt to deny and be deceitful about terror. I appreciate you joining me. Thank you so much, our former envoy to the United Nations. I want to just for a moment shift track, just to tell you that later in the show I'll be joined by a widow of one of the victims of Baisaran. So look forward to that. I want to hear her speak out. But I want to turn, meanwhile, to the day's top political story. And that comes from a decision taken by the Narendra Modi government today at a cabinet meeting, announcing that the census, the next census, will also be including a caste census. The government says that caste enumeration will be part of the census. For Rahul Gandhi, the Congress leader, who has made caste census the cornerstone of his Lok Sabha election campaign, this could be a vindication, or it could be Mr. Modi trying to steal the thunder of the Congress. Which is it? I'll be joined in a face-off in a moment, but first take a look at why this caste census could be a political game changer.
While India waited with bated breath on a big announcement coming in concerning the Pahalgam attacks, the government took everybody by surprise by making a massive announcement, but not on Pahalgam retaliation. The government has decided that caste census will take place along with the national census.
आज दिनांक 30/4/2025 के दिन प्रधानमंत्री श्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी के नेतृत्व में राजनीतिक विषयों की कैबिनेट समिति ने यह निर्णय लिया है कि जातियों की गणना को आने वाली जनगणना में सम्मिलित किया जाए.
The demand for a caste census blew up politically with the backdrop of the 2024 Lok Sabha elections, where the Congress raised the clarion call of Jitni Abadi Utna Haq. The government, while making the announcement today, stressed on what they deemed has been Congress's double speak.
कांग्रेस की सरकार ने जाति जनगणना के बजाय एक सर्वे कराना ही उचित समझा. इस सब के बावजूद कांग्रेस और इंडी गठबंधन के दलों ने जाति जनगणना के विषय को केवल अपने राजनीतिक लाभ के लिए उपयोग किया.
The Congress, though, was quick to take credit, stressing they have already conducted the caste survey in Telangana and already proposed reservation based on it. Jairam Ramesh tweeted a letter from 2023 stating that the Congress President Mallikarjun Kharge then had requested the Prime Minister to conduct a caste survey immediately.
Caste census, we have been fighting now for some time. Government has opposed. For some reason, we don't understand what that reason is. They have suddenly decided to do it. We welcome that. We are happy that they have done the caste census.
While the move will have tectonic political implications, the state of Bihar, going into elections in less than 6 months, will feel its maximum political impact. The Bihar Chief Minister Nitish Kumar tweeted welcoming the move. The political minefield that this move exposes will require deft political maneuvering. Till now, the dream of Baba Saheb Ambedkar of a casteless society has only but remained a dream and a mirage. The hard reality is that caste continues to play a huge role in governance and social equity and policy. And for that, will it be better to have real numbers or continue to operate blind?
So is the caste census the political game changer that the Congress hopes it will be? Is a caste census desirable or not in the first instance? Is the caste count divisive, as some call it, or much needed? Joining me now, two special guests. Yogendra Yadav, co-founder Swaraj India, who's been a strong advocate of a caste census, joins me. Alok Bansal, Director, India Foundation, is a critic of the caste census. Appreciate both of you joining us. I want to come to you, Yogendra Yadav. Do you believe that what we've seen today was an idea whose time has come. Since 1931, we haven't had a proper caste enumeration in this country when it comes to a census?
Rajdeep, what we are witnessing today is a culmination of an idea whose time had come about 30 years ago. We have lived in denial. We have lived in an anomalous position of the kind that you don't see anywhere in the world. You give legal affirmative action on the basis of caste, but you don't enumerate in the census. I mean, I don't know of any single country in the world which does something as weird as that. So we have ended that anomaly. In any case, in order to treat any disease, the first step is test, monitoring. You cannot eliminate caste. You cannot end caste in this country unless you acknowledge that it exists, unless you monitor the inequalities that caste system leads to, unless you then, based on evidence, devise policies that address it. So today is a very major day. It's a historic day. Yes, we always look at all historic decisions based on short-term political calculus, who did this, why, and so on. But in the long run, what stays is the sheer impact of something as major as that. And I think, as you rightly said, Rahul Gandhi and Congress would take the credit, deserve it, because despite all the external and also possibly internal opposition, he stuck to it, forced it. And I think Modi government was really left with no option except to now concede it. So it is a vindication, certainly. And it's a positive development for the country.
You're saying positive development. Before I come to Alok Bansal, just to push you for a moment, you're saying the positive development is finally that we will be, in a sense, able to know how the caste demographics of India are and therefore can frame policies accordingly. But there will be those who will say this could, once you have a caste census, it could then lead to demands for reservation that will spiral out of control. Rahul Gandhi, for example, today said that 50% can no longer be the cap as the Supreme Court has enunciated. We need to increase that cap. Will that not create fresh social friction?
Rajdeep, I always find this argument rather funny. This is like saying, let's not count the number of girls in this university, which seems to have increased, but let's not count it, because just in case we count it, there would be demand for more girls' hostels. What would be your response? So what? I mean, those who say, let's not have a blood test, because just in case we discover that the patient is ill, we'll have to give medicine. Just in case we discover it's cancer, we'll have to operate. Yes, of course you'll have to do that. How is that a valid argument? I don't understand that at all. In fact, any sensible person anywhere in the world would say, if you look at any inequality, whether it is based on caste or based on gender or in some countries based on race, the very first thing that you do sensibly is to record, is to monitor the development, is to map it. And incidentally, there's a huge mistake, Rajdeep, when we think that caste census is only going to give you the number of the population size of each caste. No, that's not the most important thing of caste census. Caste census would give you a detailed breakup of educational, economic, and social profile of each caste at each level, from the country to state, down to taluka, down to every single village, which is exactly the kind of evidence you need. This is exactly the kind of evidence Supreme Court and the Indian judiciary has been demanding over the years. They've always said, yes, you can frame policies, but every policy should be based on evidence. And when someone says, all right, let's gather evidence, everyone jumps and says, no, don't gather evidence. It's a dangerous thing. I find it funny. Shouldn't you find that funny too?
Alok Bansal, do you find it funny too? Since you've opposed the caste census, what's your biggest concern?
See, firstly, I disagree with what Mr. Yadav says. When you're counting women and men are divided biologically. Race also can be divided scientifically. Caste is an artificial entity which politicians like Mr. Yadav have reinforced and actually sustained in this country. Today, urban youth does not believe in caste. But when you do a caste census, you force him or her to choose a caste-based identity. Now, this identity, which should have been obliterated, is being reinforced by people who are advocating caste census. And that is a problem. This is similar arguments which were put by Muslim League for having religion in census, and which ultimately led to the division of India. Now, dividing people on the basis of caste. Today, do you think an urban college-going youth believes in caste? No. There are inter-caste marriages taking place. But even when the children of those inter-caste marriages are forced to identify with a caste, you are creating a division. You are creating a division.
But Anup Bansal, if I may intervene, aren't you? I mean, it's a, where are we living? Caste is still a living reality in this country, across the country at every level. I mean, I can also show you classifieds which say wanted for a Kshatriya. No, it's not about my children.
Your children believe in caste. Will you marry them according to caste? No.
Sir, 1.4 billion Indians, if I go through the classifieds, if I look at our politics, if I look at our social organizations, caste is a reality. Go to any part of rural India. Are we telling ourselves that caste identities no longer matter? Be honest with ourselves.
Yeah, let's be honest. Today, urban population almost is 50% of India's population. It's no longer India of the villages where 80% population was in rural. Today, 50% population, bulk of them do not believe in caste. But you are forcing them to identify themselves by caste because of politicians who are actually looking at caste as a vote gathering mechanism. So that is the problem. Tell me, mine, anybody's children, do they believe in caste? Would they marry according to caste? Will Mr. Yadav look for a caste-based girl for his son or a daughter? No. Then why are we insisting on this mechanism which should have actually gone lock, stock and barrel? Now, people who say caste-based identities are good, caste-based discrimination is bad. The fact is, caste system is inherently discriminatory. It is a hierarchical system which creates discrimination. If you have to get rid of it, you cannot identify. And if worst case scenario, if you have decided to go for a caste-based census, give people an option to say they don't believe in caste. Give them no caste as an option, which is not there. Today, government forms ask you for a caste, but don't give you an option to say, I don't have a caste. Why are you not giving that?
Yogendra Yadav, you're hearing this argument that basically it will only institutionalize and consolidate the caste hierarchical system in the country. Is the argument being made against the caste census?
Rajdeep, I can't believe I'm hearing such arguments on national television. Let me clarify to Mr. Bansal. It's not merely my son or daughter. I actually happen to be someone who married outside my caste. Both my wife and I decided not to give our children any caste names. So it's not just the youth. You know, there were people before the youth as well, Bansal Saab, who did not believe in caste. And please do not peddle this lie on national television. It will look ridiculous, Bansal Saab, when you say these things, that people don't have an option of saying no caste. Please remember, probably you don't know how census is conducted. When someone comes to your house, please remember for the last 70 years in independent India, your language and your religion has always been asked to you. And Mr. Bansal, you always have an option to say no religion. You can certainly say that. It's always been the case. Of course, when someone comes to your house to ask your caste, you would always have the option to say no caste. Thank you very much. So let's not spread these very elementary lies. It doesn't look good when we say things of this kind. The important thing, remember, Mr. Bansal, let's not get into these. I mean, let's have a serious argument. If we just start peddling lies, it actually is not a good argument. Census always gives you the option.
Lies, Mr. Yadav, sorry.
You can say atheism is my religion. You can say Marxism is my religion. You can say whatever, India is my religion. You always have that option, and the option has been exercised. Obviously, the same option will be exercised once caste census takes place. Obviously, when they come to speak to my children will say, well, we do not have a caste. My father belongs to one caste. My mother belongs to another caste. And on that basis, my children will not be entitled to making any caste-based claims. That's all. So one, let's get rid of that. Number two, I'm very happy to discover that people like me have the power of inventing caste in this country, which did not obviously exist in the past or has probably disappeared. Mr. Bansal, all I can say is, please welcome to this country. Please spend a week in urban India, in the bastis of urban India, in ordinary households, and in the middle-class colonies of Delhi. I challenge you, Mr. Bansal. Please let us take a bet today on national television. Come to any place where marriages are being negotiated. Yes, there are children who marry outside their caste. And yes, I hope my children, as and when they decide, if they do won't take any of those castes. But let us not forget, Mr. Bansal, we live in a society where caste not only determines your life chances, your educational prospects, your career opportunities, it in about 75-80% cases also determines your life partner. And finally, Mr. Bansal, suppose that were not to be the case. Let us imagine that in this country, caste has ceased to matter. Your educational opportunities, your life chances have nothing to do with caste. In that case, Mr. Bansal, you should welcome the caste census, because caste census will provide you, if you are true and if you are honest to your belief, caste census will provide the ultimate truth. If you are right, you will get the ultimate evidence to prove yourself. And if I'm right, I will get the evidence. So why don't we go for tests? Why are we disputing? We can debate about medicine. Why are we debating about blood tests? Why are we debating X-ray?
Let Mr. Bansal intervene. I think the argument made by those who are advocating the caste census, Mr. Bansal, is that why run away from the reality of this country? In fact, we have reservations at the moment, often based on a 1931 census. Let it be on what is done in 2025, so there is hard evidence on the basis of which policy interventions take place.
See, Rajdeep, let me come to what Mr. Yadav said. Firstly, the problem discussing with politicians is they actually peddle lies in a very soft manner. I did not say that you invented caste. I only said you are reinforcing caste by doing a caste-based census. I never said that. Secondly, in the census, you have an option for saying no religion. You don't have an option for saying no language. Please understand. It's your presumption that when there will be a caste-based census, there will be no column for no caste. Today, in government jobs, there are so many places where you have to caste. You cannot say no caste. Please understand. There is a problem. So there is a problem. Today, according to, at least I know, all my friends, all my colleagues, can get married with their children are getting married outside caste. The point is that the urban youth is moving away from caste-based identity. But by bringing in this caste-based census, you are actually forcing them to identify themselves with a particular caste. You are seeing when children of mixed marriages are born, they are invariably forced to take a caste sooner or later. You can see politicians. You can see politicians who are born of mixed marriages. Their son Chirag Paswan is identifying himself with the caste. If your logic was okay, I would have accepted it. Doesn't happen. Please understand.
But Mr. Bansal, even in the absence of a caste census, they are doing it. You know, at least the caste census will provide some scientific basis for policy interventions like reservations. I mean, when communities demand reservations without evidence. So you're saying it will exacerbate it.
Accentuate this problem. And even if you do a census, at least don't release the report. At least have the reports kept under, because there is no end to division. Today you can division between 10 castes. Tomorrow people would want to be divided into 100 castes. There are Brahmins who have got different gradations. There are actually Kshatriyas, Vaishyas. They have so many subgradations. There is no end to division. You can keep dividing the people and there will be no end to it.
Can I therefore ask you, Yogendra Yadav, in conclusion, one of the fears is, and I come back to this, that let's assume, yes, we should have a caste census because you need a scientific enumeration of castes done scientifically, and I emphasize the word scientifically. However, once it's done, there will be competing demands from different caste groups to increase the reservation pie. And therefore, that will take reservations spiraling out of control. They will be used, as they have by some, as a political weapon. Why, therefore, open up the bottle, the caste bottle, in a way that you will increase friction in society? I come back to it. That is the principal argument being made.
Rajdeep, I want to understand where that principal argument is coming from. To go back to that example of university.
It's coming from Yogendra Yadav, state after state, where reservations are being pushed well over 60%, 70% and beyond.
Rajdeep, so my question is that clearly is coming from someone who does not belong to the category called SC, ST or OBC. That is clearly less than 20% of India's population. And every single evidence that we have about India is that this category, which is less than 20% of our population, happens to occupy about 2/3 or 3/4 of every single position of power in this country, except political power and except in those cases where there are formal reservations. So number one, much of this fear is coming from a very privileged section of society. Clearly, Rajdeep, this cannot be the fear of those who have been kept away from education, those who have been denied opportunity in this country systematically. And just to go back to that question, Rajdeep, if you say, oh my God, if we count girls, we'll have to provide more hostels. Well, the answer is yes, sir, then provide more hostels. All this apprehension comes from those. And that's my point, Rajdeep. Actually, everyone knows what the caste census would reveal. We are opposing blood tests because we know what the blood test would reveal. Everyone knows that the number of OBCs in this country would be substantially higher than their quota or than their job quota. Everyone knows that once the census figures come, the educational and economic profile of OBCs in this country, of the SC and ST, will turn out to be dramatically worse than what the upper caste have, the leading Agada caste have in this country. Mr. Bansal knows it. There is a very sharp division in this country. The trouble is we don't want to acknowledge it. Once that comes, yes, we'll have to take remedial action. Yes, reservation can be one of those remedial actions. Yes, 50% ceiling will have to be abrogated. But yes, many other steps will also have to be taken to say, let us not open our eyes to inequalities, lest we need to do something about it, is a very, very poor argument.
Mr. Bansal, since that was a long comment given by Yogendra Yadav, you deserve a 30-second response. Do you see this as a political game changer?
It is actually no political game changer. It is actually a very, very divisive mood. Baba Saheb Ambedkar, who was not from the privileged society, wanted a casteless society. This is a step which actually accentuates caste. It does not go towards obliteration of caste. The aim of the society should be obliteration of caste. People like Mr. Yadav wants to perpetuate caste. That's the problem. He is a politician and politicians want to perpetuate caste. That's the problem. Today, the youth of this country do not want caste. They want to create a casteless society, which people like him are preventing it from being created.
Let me leave it there. I've heard two very clear, sharp viewpoints, and that's always good to hear, because I think this is an issue where there are two clear viewpoints emerging. But interestingly, politicians are all taking credit for it. Every political party. Rahul Gandhi is taking credit, saying he's the one who pushed it for the last couple of years. Every Modi government minister is now calling it a historic decision taken by the Prime Minister. So whether you and I don't believe in the caste identity, our politicians certainly do. And that perhaps reflects the reality on the ground. Yogendra Yadav, Mr. Bansal, thank you so much for joining me here on the show tonight. Let's turn to tonight's ground report. The deadline for Pakistani nationals to leave India is now over. Authorities have started deporting Pakistani citizens who stayed on. Many of them have lived in India for years and were hoping for citizenship. Take a look at tonight's Get Real India story.
Teary farewells at the Atari border. With the deadline for Pakistani nationals to leave India long over, deportations have begun. The Jammu and Kashmir police is rounding up Pakistani citizens and bringing them to the Atari border post in buses. The terror attack on tourists in Pahalgam has cast a long shadow on the lives of ordinary people as India turns up the heat on Pakistan.
पाकिस्तान में सियालकोट से हूँ। मेरी 2010 में शादी हुई थी। 15 साल हो चुके हैं मेरी शादी को और मैं यहाँ जम्मू उस्ताद मोहल्ला में रहने वाली हूँ। मैं नहीं जाना चाहती, अपना घर छोड़ के कोई नहीं जाना चाहता। मैं क्यों अपना घर छोड़ के जाऊँगी, अपने बच्चे क्यों छोड़ के जाऊँगी। मैं यहाँ कोई सैर करने के लिए नहीं आई थी। मैंने फैमिली बनाई है यहाँ पे, मैंने घर बनाया है। मुझे जबरदस्ती भेजा जा रहा है, मैं नहीं जाना चाहती।
यहाँ पे कौन कौन है आपके?
मेरे 2 बेटे हैं, मेरा शौहर है।
जो पहलगाम में लोग मारे गए उनके लिए कुछ कहेंगे?
मैंने मारे हैं।
नहीं, चलो
जिन्होंने मारे हैं, हमें दुख है ना, तो उनको सजा दें। हमें किस चीज की सजा मिल रही है? छोटे छोटे बच्चों को किस चीज की सजा मिल रही है? 9 साल से अप्लाई कर रहे थे, वीजा नहीं मिल रहा था। ऑनलाइन फिर हमने निकाह किया, फिर हमें वीजा मिला है और अब वीजा मिला है और अब ये ड्रामा हो गया।
Many people who lived here for decades now face an uncertain life in a land now alien to them.
मैं मैं तो जाऊंगी नहीं, मैं तो यहीं रहूंगी सर, मैं नहीं जाना चाहती। मेरा कोई वहाँ पे है नहीं, मेरी 89 में मेरे मदर फादर की डेथ हो गई थी, वहाँ पे मेरा कोई भी नहीं है, मैं किसके पास जाऊँ, मुझे बता दीजिए आप।
शादी कब हुई थी?
89 में ही मेरी शादी हुई थी
सर। मैंने इंडियन नेशनलिटी के लिए अप्लाई किया हुआ, ये देखिए, ये कागज देखिए, इसमें क्लियरली लिखा हुआ है कि ये नेशनलिटी का।
तो आपकी वाइफ का घर है पाकिस्तान में? अब
कुछ नहीं है।
Families are getting split.
मेरी यहाँ शादी हुई है आज से 6 साल पहले। मैं 3 साल से यहाँ पे रह रही हूँ। मेरे 2 बच्चे हैं यहाँ पर।
कहाँ हुई शादी आपकी?
मेरी बारामूला में शादी हुई।
बारामूला में
40 साल से यहाँ हूँ और मुझे सिटीजनशिप दी नहीं इन्होंने, इसमें मेरा कसूर है। मेरी फैमिली है मुजफ्फराबाद में है, मेरी फैमिली भाई बहन है, फादर मदर की डेथ हो गई है, मेरे बाप दादा यहीं के हैं।
Some claim they have even voted in elections here.
मेरा वोटर आईडी यहाँ का है, मेरा 10th भी यहीं से हुआ, मेरा 12th भी यहीं से हुआ है और अभी करंटली मैं अपना बैचलर्स परस्यू कर रहा हूँ। मेरे जून में फाइनल एग्जाम से तो मेरा ग्रेजुएशन हो जाता।
People facing deportation are hoping for relief, even if it comes at the last minute.
Here at the Atari border, not only long queues of the people who want to go voluntarily has picked up pace, but also the deportation drive against the Pakistani nationals is going up in a big way. From Atari border, with camera person Ravi Khan, this is Asim Basi, India Today.
As often is the case, innocent citizens will suffer when the Pakistan terror state operates in the way it does. The question is, do people deserve collective punishment? Think about that. Our good news today story comes from Karnataka's Belgavi, where a shepherd has cracked the UPSC. He's all set to become an IPS officer. Take a look.
When the UPSC Civil Services examination results came last week, Birdeva Done was tending to his goats in Belgaum in Karnataka. Done, who hails from Yamge village in Maharashtra's Kolhapur district, got All India rank 551 and will join the Indian Police Service.
जिद्द चिकाटी आणि प्रामाणिक प्रयत्न करत राहिले पाहिजे, आपल्या परिस्थितीची जाणीव ठेवून अभ्यास करत राहिले पाहिजे, चांगल्या मित्रांची संगत ठेवली पाहिजे, व्यसनापासून लांब राहिले पाहिजे आणि सोशल मीडिया सारख्या गोष्टीपासून थोडंसं लांब राहिलं पाहिजे, जेणेकरून आपण आपल्या कष्टांवर फोकस करू शकतो आणि हेच जे कष्ट आहेत की जे आपल्याला प्रयत्नातून परिस्थिती बदलण्यासाठी मदत करत असतात.
Done believes that his goat Molly's blessings worked for him. The images of his celebration with his relatives and goats have been widely shared on social media. While he's flooded with messages from his village, Done is in no hurry to leave his goats.
आणि 2:30 वाजता अचानक रिझल्ट लागल्यानंतर माझा तो मित्र निशांत देशमुख म्हणून त्यांनी मला कॉल करण्याची कल्पना दिली. सो ऐकल्यानंतर खूप भारीच वाटलं, पण सक्सेस मिळवण्यामागं खूप पडद्यामागचे कलाकार खूप असतात, जसे की माझा भाऊ ज्यानं मला खूप आर्थिक पाठबळ दिलं आणि मानसिक सपोर्ट पण दिला.
After graduating in civil engineering, he prepared for the UPSC exam for 2 years in Delhi. Done cleared the exam in his 3rd attempt. With Deepak Suryavanshi, Bureau Report, India Today.
These are the kind of stories that should make you smile and feel happy that India's breaking barriers and bridges and building bridges. Okay, I want to leave you though with our image of the day. West Bengal Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee inaugurating a Puri-like Jagannath temple in Bengal's Digha. Several celebrities and prominent figures from West Bengal's music and film industries present at the event. The temple built at a cost of 250 crore rupees. Bengal is hoping that the Jagannath temple in Digha will be part of the temple tour itinerary across the country's east coast. What Odisha did with Puri, Bengal hopes to do here with Digha. That grand temple is our image of the day. Thanks for watching. Stay well, stay safe. Good night, Shubh Ratri. Jai Hind. Namaskar.